You know, we've had people who were not happy we interviewed her. We've had people who were thrilled that we were interviewing her. You know, so I think it's just interesting.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
We did want to take a little bit here at the top of overtime to respond to some of the, to take a look at some of the stuff in the chat, and I think we're going to mainly be generally responding to kind of the tenor of the conversation, but we'll start with this specific conversation. Having read her, or this specific question, having read her policies, how would you compare her platform to Bernie's? The same, more progressive, less progressive? I would think probably less. A little bit. That's the general vibe I get, although not materially so. You know, the thing about
I would say it's very comparable.
It's definitely comparable.
Based on my recollection of Bernie's platform from 2020, and you know, being a little bit involved there, and from what I've gathered from Marianne's 2024, I would say it's in the same ballpark. It's very comparable. I mean, you might can find certain issues, some differences on particular issues, but I would say it's very, very comparable. I mean, and you know, the fact that people like Harvey J.K. are working with Marianne on that platform and campaign, you know, I think speaks to the general tenor, the general, you know, progressive vibe she's going for.
Yeah, and you know, the thing about that is that, you know, like you said, the platform is very, very similar to Bernie's. There are things that may be different here and there, but you know, not materially so. Like I said, it may be a little bit less progressive, but not materially so, I would say. The thing is, for me, you know, the platform is great, and I'm probably going to vote for her in the primary just because I do want to be able to, in some small way, voice my disappointment for the Biden administration, in the Biden administration. And I think that, you know, kind of like she said, giving more votes to an opposition candidate is a way to do that. And so that's probably what I'm going to do. But, you know, the thing that's concerning to me about her candidacy, and this was kind of mentioned in the chat, is you know, the lack of a movement behind her. Whereas, you know, Bernie had, you know, there were some unions and there were some organizations that was behind the Bernie campaign. Although maybe not at the beginning. And so, you know, perhaps there's still a chance for something to come out of the Marianne campaign or to bolster it. But you know, I think that remains to be seen.
Yeah. I mean, my general take on it is, do you want someone running with that kind of politics and that platform? And my answer would be, well, yeah, I do. I would rather there be someone running with that than not. And that's what frustrates me so much in Alabama is the lack of choice, right? I'm lucky if there's even a Democrat to vote for. And if, you know, typically the only candidate is an extreme far-right Republican. If you're lucky, maybe you have a Democrat who is basically a moderate conservative.
But last year you were more often and more likely to see a libertarian running against
right. And so I think it's important. I am like, I think most of our audience, in that electoral politics is not like the be-all, end-all for me. There's a reason why we're a union talk radio show and not a progressive politics talk radio show.
Absolutely.
I know the two overlap, but ultimately we believe the labor movement, and more broadly, the organizing of the working class, is the goal, right? Is the key to actual change in this country. That said, I would rather there be candidates running with policies I like than there not be those candidates. And so I'm glad that someone is running on, you know, basically Bernie's platform this year, since Bernie is not running. I have no illusions about, you know, how the results are going to shake out, more than likely. You know, I'm also interested in Cornel West. I'm a longtime reader of Cornel West. I've been a big fan of his work. I'm not very familiar with the People's Party. You've told me some things, Jacob, that has me quite concerned, you know. So I'm a little sus on the choice of the People's Party, if that was necessarily the right move. But again,
It was absolutely not the right move.
so
I don't understand
I'll take your
why.
word, and I'll
Yeah.
take your word for that because I'm not informed enough to know one way or the other. But what I'll say is, generally I've been a fan of Cornel's career, and again, I'm appreciative that there are people running who are trying to articulate some version of working class politics, politics that is by and for working people. We can debate on the specifics on how well each candidate is doing that, but we absolutely need conversations about why are we the only developed country on earth without paid sick leave and without guaranteed health care and without guaranteed pre-K, and why we need those conversations happening. And to the extent that people like Marianne Williamson or Cornel West running it advances that's good. I'm not going to take a lot of time and attention and money from my personal life and devote it to the 2024 election. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, this is probably the extent of our involvement with the Marianne campaign.
I'm happy to have conversations, on the show to inform people so we can all have our, decisions and make our decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more interested, to the extent that I'm interested in electoral politics, I'm more interested in at the bottom up, state and local. And someone mentioned in the chat that, we need a third party in Alabama. Something like that is honestly more intriguing to me than the presidential contest, because I think there's more opportunity to actually make a difference there, because it is starting local. And I don't know. I feel personally like I got a little more invested in Bernie's runs in 2016 and 2020 than I should have. And I knew better, as someone who is a materialist and, kind of approaches politics from that perspective. I sort of knew better, but it was hard not to get sucked in anyway. I'm not sucked into the 2024 campaign by any means. And so, again, I appreciate, what Marianne is discussing. I think she has a lot of good things to say. I understand people have their reservations about her. I understand that specifically. I also understand just being reserved and kind of skeptical of electoral politics, period. And I think that's more so our camp. And that's why, we're interested in it. We'll talk about it. We'll try to have the best informed decisions. But ultimately, we think building power in the working class, organizing unions, building community power, that's really our goal and how we're going to make things better. It's not just electing people. I think Marianne's right that some inside-outside game is necessary, right? I mean, if you're totally working outside, you're sticking to nothing but union organizing and community organizing, and you're never entering into the electoral arena, you may be missing some opportunities there. But generally speaking, the problem in American politics is that we put way too much into the electoral side of things while abandoning labor organizing and community organizing. So, that's kind of my general thoughts about it. I appreciate the diverse perspectives that people have had. We've had people who were not happy we interviewed her. We've had people who were thrilled that we were interviewing her. So I think it's just interesting, to always hear from folks about what they have to say. And, there's always some haters. There's always folks who will surprise you. So
but yeah, that's kind of our take. There was another question about where she stands on the Palestinian issue, I'm not sure. That may be a good one to try to dig around and see if she's got one. But understand certainly, Will, that's a big issue for you. And you said I don't think she's that good when it comes to human rights for them, and that may be the case. So I'm not sure. I haven't seen, but definitely something I'd want to look into.
I was interested in foreign policy as well, and we didn't really have time just to get into that. But I'm going to say this part that I was going to mention had we gotten to it, which is that one of the key powers of the presidency is in foreign policy. And as someone committed to peace and internationalism and opposed to war and empire, I'm disturbed by both political parties. And I'm disturbed by their warmongering. I'm disturbed by their imperialism, their relationship to defense contractors and the military-industrial complex that, I know we're not really supposed to talk about. Both parties seem committed to adversarial relations, whether that's with China or Russia or both. Neither party seems serious about working with the international community to bring peace, whether that's in Ukraine or in the Middle East or elsewhere. Neither party wants to reckon with the consequences of American foreign policy over the years, whether that's U.S. sanctions or covert actions or the support of oligarchies or the support of Israeli apartheid, for example. These policies have real consequences for real human beings. And unfortunately, we're not going to have a lot of good conversations in the presidential campaign about that, I don't believe.
Yeah.
Certainly not from mainstream media and mainstream politics.
Yeah. DL Sendero says, I regret to say it, but in my honest opinion, running on the People's Party ticket will be his undoing regarding Cornel West. And I think that's kind of, as far as this race, and that's really the thing that I don't understand, is I think that if he had run just as an independent or even in the Democratic primary, and I tend to be kind of Libby on that, and I think that running in the Democratic Party maybe makes more sense typically than an independent run. But like we've talked about, it's not something that I spend a lot of time on.
Well, I still love Cornel.
I still love
Cornel. I'm still going to listen to him talk and listen to what he has to say.
Yeah.
And
TSAL Collective said, the reason I like Wes is he believes every word he says, even if it feels trite or ugly in our culture. Him being misused as a cultural symbol won't hurt him, but it will burn out the clock. Regarding getting Cornel on the debate stage, I think that would be a very funny debate, and I'd be very much interested in seeing it. So
absolutely.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.